can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
I'm Jim Rosetti, co-host of the Integrity Investing podcast series. And as the song says, I can see clearly now. And as we explore the two entirely different worlds of investing, default versus scientific, you will see clearly which of the two worlds that you're living in right now. This series of podcasts will open your eyes and enable you to enjoy real peace of mind, as well as clearly understand your true purpose for money, and to empower and equip you and your family to live the life you love and deserve. And now, here's your host of Integrity Investing, author, entrepreneur, CEO of Veritas Investment Services, certified financial educator, financial coach, and host of this podcast series, Margaret Wittkopp. Okay, Margaret, and we are talking again. I'm excited about what we're going to discuss today. And I want to let you know that I just came off of the two-day event I've been speaking about on these podcasts. And it never fails to get me excited. When I think I can't sit through a 2-day event, by the second day, I can't get enough of it. It's so refreshing. And the only thing I can say to you is I wish I would have found this 20 years earlier. You might hear that a lot.
I do. I hear that quite often.
Okay, I'm just going to bring up some of the subject matter that was in the 2-day for you, because you do these and you know them very well. So one of them was diversified. As far as a structure of a portfolio, many people feel that having lots of stuff in there is diversified.
Yeah. In the traditional investment industry, the world that most people are invested in or know of as investing, the word diversity is used quite a lot. And people think of it as, in a very cliche way, not having all your eggs in one basket. Okay, true enough. But it isn't, there is a really specific design to diversification. And in bottom line, it really boils down to this. It's a methodology, a very scientific way of designing and creating a portfolio that to achieve the maximum amount of return for the amount of risk you're willing to take. Now, in the traditional investment world that most people are, sort of subject to, that you see on TV and magazines or through your brokerage firms or the local guy that is doing your investing or an insurance company that you might be dealing with, they will use the word diversity, but they don't have a clue how to create it. Yes. And by that, I mean, they're pretty much, we see this over and over and over. And when we do analysis of these portfolios, these so-called diversified portfolios, let me first say, you can't trust a book by its cover. In other words, a mutual fund might call itself something like a large cap fund, okay?
Yes.
Or it might say it's in that category. Well, it might have some bonds in it. It might have a little international. It might have this or that. It might be all over the board. The majority of the stocks in it might be large cap. Well, that's not real diversification. Sometimes people, I got the S&P 500, that's diversified. No, that's one asset class. Right. So it's asset classes of dissimilar correlation. In other words, they don't move in the market as one. They move in different ways, up and down. And how you engineer that portfolio is going to determine your outcome. And if you don't have a true map or a true recipe or a true engineering that actually captures the elements of the market that are meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother subject there. You don't have real diversification. You may have the same stocks in, let's say you've got 5 mutual funds, and you may have the same stocks in every one of those, or the majority of the stocks in those 5 funds may be all the same. We see that a
Yes.
lot.
Yeah.
We call that overlap. When you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 stocks, they all own Apple, they all own Microsoft, they all own, guess what? Over and
Right.
over and over and over. That's not being diversified.
Right.
People say, well, I have no, I have an international fund. Oh, okay, that's good. But is it enough? Do you have small cap international? Do you have emerging markets small cap? Do you have emerging markets value? There are specific ingredients that need to be in your portfolio to give you that maximum amount of return for the amount of risk you're willing to take. So that's how diversification is defined.
All right. I was totally on a different page with what I thought diversification was until I heard that in the 2-day, and it was like one of those aha moments. I really discovered what you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very good. And we go into great detail in that 2-day event is meant to really open people's eyes, so that they can be empowered to make, investing decisions that are beneficial to them. And well, to heck with the investment industry, to heck with the advisor. I mean, really, truly, yes, there are going to be some costs associated with doing business. I got that. And everybody gets that.
Sure.
Nobody's going to do this for nothing. It's not a charity. But the point is, the investment industry, as it's known to most people, is so egregiously. Here's how they use diversification. They use that word to get you to buy something else. Oftentimes. Can't say always. But oftentimes it's just another word, and they use it as a buzzword. It has nothing. Right. There's no engineering. There's no really rhyme or reason as to why they're adding something to your portfolio. They don't do they explain it to you? That's what you should ask. Why do I need that? Why should I put that in my portfolio? Well, if they knew the truth, the guy's getting a nice commission on it. That's why he's putting it in your portfolio. But anyway.
Well, I hear them throw that word around so much, diversity. I mean, it just gets tossed out there, and we diversify for our clients. Of course we do. But there's such a complete, what do you call it? Cognitive dissonance? Is that terminology I got from? Yes, I'm not pronouncing it right, but I heard it.
Yeah, the course is designed to create cognitive dissonance. What is cognitive dissonance? It's when your brain feels like it's being fried. In other words, your brain actually, you're thinking, well, I thought I knew what that was. Right, because you've heard from the traditional investment industry, oh, that's what that is. And then you find out that whatever that is actually not. That what you thought was so just ain't so. And one of the cues, if you were, one of the clues that you're really getting something from the 2-day event is when you start to realize you're having cognitive dissonance. Your brain is actually fighting what you're trying to grapple with what you're hearing.
Right.
And it's laid out in such a way that it really it creates an experience so that you can't forget it. Once you get it, like you said, that aha moment.
Yes.
And people may not say aha, but they're feeling it. And once it clicks and you start to understand how the engineering, how the science of investing, how that can actually be applied to your benefit.
Yes.
Well, that's the beginning of having some peace of mind. Because without that science, without that certainty that this will work because it's been tested and tried,
Right.
you're walking down a very precarious plank, if you would, down a road that you have not, like a dark alley,
Yes.
hoping and wishing, and I hope I've got the right guy, and I hope I got the right funds, and I hope I got the right managers, and I hope I got the right stocks, and I hope this is going to work out, and
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Those
yeah,
those were my thoughts exactly. And one of the things I can honestly say is that and they mentioned this and that it would happen, and it did happen. It was called breakthrough thinking. And
yes,
by the end of that first day, by the beginning of the second day, I felt that I really had that breakthrough thinking. And it was a kind of an electrifying experience what this 2 days does to you. And it's not
beautiful.
all a lot of chatter, about terminology I don't understand. It was very understandable, and it was the way it flowed. I can't tell you how much I got out of it. It wasn't somebody standing there preaching at me for 2 days.
Yeah,
Not at all.
absolutely
Yeah.
right. In fact, it's really well designed. We've worked the firm I work with and for years
Mhm.
we've been, this has been worked on and worked on until it has become this really impactful event. Now,
Right.
you mentioned terminology. The truth is, we explain the terminology as we go along. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, like the word diversification, that terminology, there's a whole new level of understanding of that word and how that impacts not just your portfolio, but your life.
Right.
What does
Right.
that mean? What does that do for you?
Mhm.
How does that impact your ability to have some, not just peace of mind, but go forward in life, fulfilling on your dreams, fulfilling on your purpose in life,
Right.
fulfilling
Right.
on what you want to do? And here's one thing that people often do not associate with their financial life, and that's the detrimental effects of not applying the science. They
Right.
don't realize, they just really don't realize how vulnerable they are when they're subject to the traditional investment industry.
Mhm.
Okay? They don't really know how much it's costing them. They don't
I
know how,
didn't.
and yeah, and it could be costing them in a couple of different ways. One might be they're not getting the returns they should. They're taking too much risk or not enough risk,
Right.
meaning they're not getting the kinds of returns that will see them, depending on the space in life or where they are. If they're a young person just starting out or a person heading to retirement or in retirement, these are things that can be measured. How much risk you're taking, how well you're diversified, how to measure risk is extremely important so
Mhm.
that you can control those things. You can't control something you don't measure. So we
Right.
talk about that. We don't just talk about it, we apply it. So yeah, you're right. It's not just a day of lecture, 2 days of lecturing. It's about interaction. It's
Very,
about
very
really,
interactive. Mm.
yeah, grappling with, these concepts, and not just grappling with the concepts like there's some ethereal out there, oh, they don't matter. It's really get right down to the nitty gritty of what does this mean in your life. So,
Right.
for example, this is a lot of people say, "Well, I'm doing okay." Well, that's nice that you feel like you're doing okay. How do you know? Number one, how do you know you're doing okay?
Well,
Have
you
you
wanna
met?
say that to yourself till you believe it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We
Yeah.
all want to feel like we're doing okay.
Sure.
Even people who have amassed a pretty nice nest egg, maybe they
Mhm.
think they're pretty secure. They've got enough in their bank, enough in the investments, enough in their 401k. Maybe they've established a Roth and, have been saving over their time, and they think they've done a pretty good job.
Right.
Everyone,
Right.
they want to feel and believe that they've done a pretty good job. I get your wanna. I get that you wanna believe
Yeah.
that. The test comes in are you really secure in it? Are you really sure of it? And how can you be really sure of it? Well, that's where the science comes in. The science teaches us the engineering of a portfolio. The science delivers the reassurance that we know what we're doing, and it's been put to the test. For over 30 years, we've been investing in this manner, and it has proved itself through the test of time.
Right.
And it gets rid of, one of the objectives is to eliminate speculating and gambling. Eliminate speculating and gambling from the investing process. Now, so many people just accept this premise that investing is inherently gambling. It doesn't have to be. Yes, there's market volatility. You want market volatility. That presents opportunity. Without volatility, you're dead. Flatline. You know what flat
I believe that wholeheartedly, that investing was gambling and speculating. That's the only way I knew, Margaret. That was it. I grew up that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and unless, you like to speculate and gamble, and that's part of your DNA or your, I just tell people point blank, we don't speculate with our clients' money.
Right.
And when they ask me to, sometimes they do, they'll say, well, we got to get out of the market. We got to market timing or, doing something speculative. I'll just say, you can do what you want, but I'm not going to gamble with your money. And that leads, so that leads to another, whole part of prudent investing. It's very disciplined. It's very boring. You would not have very many TV shows like all these business talk shows that show you and talk about. That's all.
You mean Jim Cramer wouldn't be rapping his fist on the desk?
Jim Cramer would be on nobody. Yes, exactly. And he hasn't even done very well. His portfolio of his own personal making. We have an article, and in fact, some people kind of followed his picks, and he didn't even do as good as the S&P 500. I mean, he underperformed the index like unbelievably.
He was a victim of his own narrative.
Own demise, yes. Victim of his own cooking.
I got to tell you, Margaret, one of the areas that they went into in the 2-day was the no talk rule. And I got to tell you, I grew up in a family where we did not talk about money. We sat at the kitchen table and had conversation as growing up, but nobody ever talked about how my dad and mom made a living. And I know we went through tough times, but they never let on like they were tough to the kids. And then we went through some good times, but so that was a tremendous experience to learning that other people shared the same thing I did about no talking about finances or money. And I felt at the event, I came out of there with a complete different paradigm. Yes.
Well, there's a couple of things to think about. Most of us, I too. I mean, I remember being shushed by I was at a friend's house, and I got, kind of a evil eye when I asked some innocuous question about, how much money does your daddy make or something. I don't even know what I said, but I said something wrong. That's for sure. It's interesting. But it's a cultural thing, and it really is not just most cultures have this. I mean, it's taboo to talk about money.
Well, they called it
impolite. Taboo, impolite.
Your etiquette around was totally questioned when that. But
exactly. But here's the thing about the no talk rule. Anything you can talk about controls you. Mm-hmm. Anything you cannot express. And if you don't have a good way of expressing your purpose in life and your relationship around money, it'll have you by the throat. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
Right.
it is pervasive. It can be pervasive even amongst in between spouses. It's a money can be a means of control. It can be a means of, dominance or subjugation. It can be a means of being a victim. I mean, or blasé, or somebody else's job to take care of. It's not my job. It's somebody else's job. So I just neglect and I just have a state of denial, you know. Yeah, it's a very interesting part of our life. And yet it weaves itself throughout our whole life.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
Money weaves itself through every aspect of your life. Every
I
decision
think
you make, your
if we were
relationship.
to take some kind of a test on what probably is the number one cause of marital breakups, we
Yeah.
would probably find that money is at the top, near the top, if not
Oh, it
at the
is.
top. Yeah.
It is one of the causes of marital breakup and conflict. And even if it doesn't break up your marriage, it can cause great conflict depending on where the couple. They don't know how to talk about it. So yeah, it's something that needs to be broken through. You need to get comfortable
Yeah.
expressing yourself and understanding yourself in the world of money.
Mhm.
So you can understand your relationship with money. We talk a good deal about that as well. What's your
Right.
relationship money? Oh, I never have enough. There'll never
Mhm.
be enough. It's hard to make, hard to get, hard to keep. Is it hard? Or
I
is it
always
easy
felt that
come,
way.
easy go? Easy come, easy go. I just easy come, easy go. We got people like that.
Well,
So we
here's
don't.
what happened at the event when they talk about money, the no talk rule, and then they emphatically wanted to make sure that both husband and spouse were there, that not just one or the other were there, which I thought was great because my spouse started talking about money and I never heard her talk about it like that. And she opened up. And it
Yeah, you
was an
learn stuff.
opening experience.
Very good. Yeah, we
Yeah.
see that often. We find that
Right.
couples, and certainly it's not limited to couples, but because
Mhm.
lots of single people come, but couples find a new awareness
Sure do. Yeah.
and a new communication. It's a very safe environment to have that happen. No one's going to judge you. In fact,
Right.
it's really wide open, very supportive. It's a very supportive environment. People are sharing their lives in various ways and in what their experiences have. We open up opportunity for that to happen. And when you start to hear some of their stories, you go, oh, wow, they did that. And I
Right.
had that same similar thought, or I had that experience too, or something similar to it. And it just starts to develop into a really supportive environment. And of course, as an American Dream leader, that 2-day event, as a leader of that, I, I've been trained, and as do all of the leaders, to facilitate that exchange and that interchange and that
Sure.
grappling with these concepts and the ability to open up to one another and to maybe even the people across the table from you in a myriad of different ways, all being very supportive, all being very supportive of your success is what it is. Supportive of of a couple's or an individual's desire to have that peace of mind around the world of money and be able to live their life fully.
Yeah, I noticed some of the people that were there when that came out, when they were allowed to start opening up a little bit, and they did. I think people felt relieved. I could sense that. Couples
Yeah,
that may have
absolutely.
never had a serious conversation about money. Oh, the husband always handles all that, or the wife always handles all that, and we never discuss it, or the significant other, or whatever. But it
Yeah.
was just a relief to know. And if you keep that bottled up, sometimes when you let that come out, it just relieves people. They start to relax and
Yeah.
we can talk about this,
The
huh?
event itself gives you permission,
Yeah, it
gives
does.
you
Yeah.
permission to explore aspects
Mhm.
of this world that weaves itself throughout every aspect of your world,
Yeah.
your life, every decision you make, everything you say, all the complexities of our lives
Right.
and our
Right.
relationships. And yet it's not spoken about. So once you have that permission, it relieves that tension. You're
It
absolutely right. It's an outlet that, and it's a supportive outlet. Nobody's
and then you go home that day after the event, and you can't believe, how come we never talked about this before? How come we're all of a sudden it just gave us the
Yeah, and for
openness? Yeah.
couples, I sense that in some cases it is. Uh, well, I'll give an example of one couple who came. Um, he had a rather disastrous happening or results of investing right after he retired or at the time of his retirement. He put it with a firm that was, you see it on TV quite a lot,
Mhm.
well known, and they lost half their money. And it created a real,
Oh,
angst
sure.
between them.
Yeah.
Now, they're a good married couple. They're good people, good people. You would not experience that with them on a normal basis. But when the subject came up and they grappled with what had happened
Mhm.
at that time, there was a lot of forgiveness and acceptance and
Right.
let go of the shame and blame. And that's part of the coaching too that we receive, and or training that we receive, is to help couples get over those things.
Well,
And it really built an opportunity then, that forgiveness and building that relationship and letting go of the past and moving forward
mhm.
in a really powerful way, knowing that what they were going to do now going forward
Yeah.
was much more stable, was much more reliable for their future. And so they could let go of the past and move forward. So it can build a really, and in a way, it's kind of odd to say this, but think about it. You can build a real intimacy in a
Right. Right.
relationship, and a real, you know,
Well, I came with the idea of that. Well, my spouse isn't really get involved in this kind of stuff, so why does she need to be there? And
that
they
happens
said,
all.
well, if you can't bring her, then you shouldn't come. And I understand why that is now. And just for what you just said, is it enables you to open up and go forward with the ability to talk about money. And if something happens to one or the other in the marriage, the other one isn't feel all, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Totally, you know, I don't know
That
anything
that
about
is a
this.
very good point. Oftentimes, the spouse that is not engaged
Right.
is left, if they are left by the other spouse. I mean, we are all finite.
Mhm.
So, what happens to that person? And they have not been involved with this. Well,
Yeah.
they're hugely vulnerable.
Right.
That investment industry that'll take advantage of that person, male or female. But
I
let's be really, in my
Right.
experience, it's often been a woman. Maybe men go through it too. I may not be as aware, and maybe they're too prideful to say it, because, of course, they're supposed to know what they're doing with their
Right.
money, and they have that burden put on them. But women that have been kept out of that realm,
Mhm.
and or have chosen to not be involved, saying,
Right.
well, it's his job, and so they just live in this la la land. Well, they could be very badly taken advantage of, and that happens a lot. It
Well,
happens way too often. And it's the saddest thing. They'll get some annuity salesman, some insurance salesman, telling them all sorts of nonsense and not sticking to their best interests at all, or even their children who are not
Right.
aware and are in that world of traditional investing, and they say all sorts of crazy things.
Hmm.
They really don't know what they don't know. They don't know. And all of a sudden, mom's in a real, trouble spot. So,
Well, they start letting the kids believe they're too young to know about this stuff. It's not,
well,
not
that's,
time for that yet. And then, but both folks in the marriage realize that they both got skin in the game when they both understand what's happening with the money at home.
yeah,
Uh,
it
I,
doesn't mean that you want to be a hot stock picker. This 2-day event will teach you not to do that.
well, how
But
many
anyway,
times has it happened that the husband is off speculating on something that's unbeknownst to the other partner, the spouse? And when the spouse finds out about it, it's too late because the money is gone because of the
yeah,
gambling and
it can happen
speculating.
too.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Well, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to that other than, yeah, that happens.
One of
And
the areas that was covered well, and for me, and I think everybody else that was there, is knowing what your purpose for money is. I thought my purpose for money was just survival.
mm,
I didn't think much. Oh, we got to have money. We can't survive without money. Of course, that's all there is to it. But I saw it in a much different light at the end of those 2 days. I saw it in a completely different way, which it opened up, and I never thought about it prior to that, Margaret.
yes, it's a very interesting thing about purpose.
Mhm.
People who have developed, you know, a purpose for life,
Yeah,
and it could be very simple. It doesn't mean it has to be, saving the world.
right,
It could be saving your family. It could be, more locally, uh, and that's a good thing. I mean, if
right.
people don't take care of their families, they can't take care of the world, right?
That's
So
right.
you better start with yourself and your spouse, and then your extended family, and etc. And that's a good start. Oftentimes, when we're in this event, people come up with wonderful, i- i- um, I want to say, expressive ways of sharing their real true purpose, which could be very, I want to say the word other centric. In other words, they're thinking about others, they're thinking of charities they would like to give to, and
Hmm.
but all good purpose. I mean, all whatever it is fine. But people with purpose live longer lives. People with a stated purpose, I mean,
Right.
everyone has purpose. But once you recognize it and have stated it, and we give you an opportunity to work through that with your spouse or with or yourself or with people at the table, and kind of think about it and create something.
Well,
And it might change throughout your life. It might change from day to day. But as long as you
right.
have that purpose, it's
Hmm.
not about a big pile. Oftentimes, when you just ask out of the blue, well, what's your purpose for money? People will say, well, to get more money. Well, that's a pretty
Yeah.
low level of being, isn't it? Just
Yeah,
to have
because
more.
it's never ever enough, or
That's
it's
right.
never.
Somebody's always got a bigger pile.
And that always leaves you insecure. It always leaves you, oh, what if I lost it? What if it went? Oh, you just, uh, I think you stress out over things when you
Yeah.
have that feeling. But I did
Money.
I did find that, and I found that some of the people that were at the event came out with some pretty interesting things they were very passionate about. Maybe they loved animals. They loved dogs and cats, and they loved the idea of them always being cared for. And I want to leave something to that world.
In society or something
Right.
of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And if
Yeah.
that gives you meaning and purpose and helps you to, avoid
Mhm.
fretting, then so be
Yeah.
it. That's great. It's really, really, really
Right.
important to identify that which is important to you. More important than money itself is
Right.
a place to plant yourself,
Mhm.
because without it, like you mentioned before, no amount of money will ever be enough. No
Right.
amount of, and with a purpose, No amount of money is too little, quite frankly. You can always move towards that purpose.
Well,
We still need money to live and breathe and do our thing, and whatever that thing is in life,
mhm.
and take care of the people you love and care about. Yeah.
Well, we come from some people. We're coming from the scarcity point of view in life. That money is
Most
scarce, and
often
money is
people do come from
yeah,
scarcity. Um,
yeah,
Scarcity lives within us. We think of money as being scarce, and it's not.
right,
It's a flow. It's there. It's in our language or in our being. It moves throughout our lives, as I've said. Our relationship with money has more to do with that. How we look at money. How much do we really
right,
need? The interesting thing about this time that we're living in, Jim, we're living in a time where we have more. The average everyday person has more, and more affluence,
right.
more access to the to food and good things. We live a better life than the kings and queens of England.
I know.
Meaning of 100 or 200
Yeah,
years ago.
right.
Yeah, more than King Henry VIII.
Well, I look
So,
at my mother lived through the Depression years in this country, and
mhm.
back in the 30s, she was a child, grew up in that, and that's where her mindset came from as a child, and it kind of fashioned her mind for the rest of her life as she went into adulthood. She never got over that mindset of poverty. Not enough, not enough, and fearful I'm going to lose it all. And she hung on to that most of her life. I think all the way till the very end of her life. And she never really in her adult life lived that way. She lived not lavish, but she lived an adequate lifestyle. Everything she really wanted was there. It wasn't scarce.
You're
But
right.
her mind was from that poverty, that childhood memories that she could never get over.
Yes, I'm running across that less, and than I did when I first got into the business.
Yeah.
I certainly dealt with people of that era
Yeah.
uh, more back in the 90s when I
Right.
started. But nowadays, I think we've actually gotten a little too lazy about the whole thing. In other words, we
Yes.
just think it all should just come
Yeah.
to me. You know, I don't know. Um, we need to have an appreciation of what we have. We need to have gratitude, uh, an appreciation from the standpoint of, yes, I'm thankful, but also an appreciation from what it takes to, to make it in the world, and to what we can do.
Right.
It isn't just about putting, having a house and clothing and shelter and food. It can be, what can I do in this world? One of the fascinating things is since the 1990s, poverty around the world, now I'm talking about poverty, has greatly diminished. Abject
Yeah.
poverty, where
Yeah.
people are living in true squalor,
Mhm.
has almost been eradicated across the globe.
Yeah.
And more people are finding opportunities through capitalism,
Yes.
golly gee, you
Right.
know, by entrepreneurial efforts. So that is spreading. That actually is spreading across the globe.
Mhm.
Interesting concept, huh?
Yeah.
So
It
when we
it
think of that, hold on. As we think of that, we think of the opportunities globally that have come to uh, as a way of investing. In other words,
right. Mhm.
across the globe, there's so much more opportunity for building wealth, creating wealth, and it benefiting multiple levels and layers of people. And truthfully speaking, capitalism is the one, flawed as it is, because it's made of flawed people,
Oh,
flawed
sure.
human beings. You know, it has its negative side too if we don't watch out for greed, too much greed. Um, but it has lifted more people out of poverty than anything else, and it just creates more abundance.
Right.
So
Right.
that's a mindset that we really encourage. We encourage it in multiple ways. That
Well, they
2 day
say that
all about creating a mindset of abundance so that
let's say
people can
a
live.
rising tide
Rises
raises
all
all
boats.
all shit.
It's a good statement. It's a good
Yeah.
statement. Yeah.
But
So any more questions you have from that or observations from that 2 day
oh,
event?
I got a bunch of them, and it was, I can't say enough about coming off of that event for 2 days. I went into the event, I think, with a good frame of mind. If you go into it thinking you're going to be bored and you're not going to get much out of it, you can. But at the end of the first day, it seems like you get hit with a lot of information day one. But by the middle of the second day, it's all coming to fruition, and you're saying, "Aha, yeah," it starts making sense. So it's laid out so well that
Yeah.
you can't leave it not feeling moved by what you experienced for those 2 days, Margaret.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And it would be my wish that every investor, everyone who is
mhm.
trying to get ahead in this world, who works hard for their money and invested in their 401k or whatever, anyone who's trying
Yeah.
to get
Well,
ahead
you had told me
would have
about it,
that
and
opportunity.
you
Yeah.
were very, very vocal and very, but I just I kind of kept pushing it off and pushing it off, and I finally said, "I'm going to sit through this 2 days." And I
Well, you
got to
didn't
tell you,
just sit
I
through it.
was so honestly, it transformed my thinking a lot. And I'm not, I'm very hard to convince on things. I'm very skeptical of things. And I thought, no, 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 I got all the answers. But it totally, as I said, breakthrough thinking started to take over with me. And I got rid of some of the biases that I had when I went into that. I saw where the biases were.
Yeah, very good.
And
Yes, the uh, it will enlighten you as to your own, like we talked about,
yeah,
your own relationship with money, and there is a whole science around it's behavioral science,
sure. Yeah,
and behavioral science specifically in the realm of the investment piece,
right.
money and investing.
Yeah,
So that is also explored so that people can identify themselves, they can see where they've been, they can see what they're up to, they can look back
yeah,
in their life and go, oh yeah, that's why that happened.
right,
um, and then they can correct it or hang on to it or whatever they choose to do, but now they're
right,
aware.
right.
Awareness gives us choice. So yes, this 2 day event is something that I would say almost to everybody, unless you like to speculate and gamble with your money and you
Right.
aren't worried about losing it all.
Well,
But if you have any concerns at all, this is a great place to get out and get an alternative to the traditional investment chaos that goes on in the world of investing, the traditional brokerage type
yeah, because I
experience.
was getting, so I thought, well, do I really want to get involved in stock investing again, or is that something I need to stay out of? Because I never had good results from it. It never turned out. There were highs and lows, but it was just I wasn't comfortable in that world. But this
Mhm.
2 days definitely was like a college education in 2 days. And it
Well,
wasn't.
actually, that's a very good statement because we take over 70 years of PhD level academic research and
Right, right,
academic what you would study if you were going for a PhD in economics or whatever. This is what you would be studying, and we distill it down into everyday language, distill it down into a way and a meaningful way for people to walk through the practical application of it.
mhm,
So it is meaningful, and I've had many, many, many people come thinking they weren't going to get it. It was going to be boring. And it came just because I
Right.
convinced them that they might get something out of it, or their spouse wanted to get there. And so they came along and they come out of it with big eyes and go, wow, that was so much better than I all thought it was being.
Yeah.
They were actually inspired. So brings couples together in a meaningful way. It can open a whole new way of looking at the world of investing. It gives you access to a totally different way of investing that you really don't have
Well,
when you're dealing in that traditional world.
I came to some understandings too that I didn't have before. I understood a little more of the terminology came to mean more to me than it did prior to coming to the event. I said, nah, I'm not interested in that because I don't understand it too much. And they did a great job of, explanation. It was just, I can't say enough. People have to experience it. I can't tell you how it was, but I'd be willing to bet anybody that went into it for the 2-day event would not look back and regret 1 minute of it. Not at all.
Of course not.
So, well, listen, Margaret, I think we've been talking up a storm today, and I'm so excited about learning more and more by asking you these questions and letting other people learn more. And that's what this is designed to do, and to really show the two different worlds of investing. That what you call traditional, which people default to.
Right.
And
it's just what they know.
And then up against the scientific world that it just kind of blew me away that this existed, but it's been around for a while, and it's revolutionizing the investment world.
That's our goal.
In a good way. Okay. Well, listen, I know you got things to attend to, so I won't hold you any longer, and we will rejoin again. Another episode will be coming shortly, and we'll let people know when that will be, and we'll have another good conversation. Thank you so much, Margaret. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
I can see clearly